Hello everyone and welcome to the Transit Nomad family. In this video, we'll discuss Sofia travel prices in 2025 as well as some of my tips on how to save when traveling. Before we get started, I'd like to let you know that as an active traveler and business owner with experience, I might be able to assist you with trip planning, life coaching, and business consulting, with all the details available at buymeacoffee.com/transitnomad or through the link in the video description below. This is where you can also find lots of exclusive content on many different cities around the world, my secret tips, PDF guides, and the option to request a custom video on any topic that matters to you. With that being said, let's begin discussing Sofia travel prices in 2025 as well as some tips on how to save when you travel. First of all, I would like to let you know that there are lots of cheap flights that come to Sofia from different parts of Europe, and it's very easy to actually get here. It's only less than 30 minutes away that it takes for you to get from the airport to the city center, and the cost of that ride is only about $1, $1 or even a little bit less. If you take the bus that goes from the airport to the city center, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes and it costs $1. I don't think it gets any better than that, because in some cities you have to go pretty far away, you have to book a ride in advance, and it costs $20 or $40, sometimes even more. In this case, it's super easy and convenient, and this is already something that's going to make your trip a lot more smooth and enjoyable. Now, once you are in the city, the cost of accommodation is also fairly low, especially if you compare it with Western European cities. I was staying in London a few weeks ago, and I was paying over $100 per day for a room, not the whole apartment, just a room way far away outside of the city center. And the conditions were really so-so. It was just a mediocre place to stay, just a room, very basic, far away from the city center. And guess what? I was paying over $100 per day of staying like that. London is a very expensive destination, of course, but fortunately that is not the case in Sofia. In Sofia, everything is a lot more affordable, and chances are you're going to get much better accommodations with more amenities where you're gonna feel a lot happier and more comfortable. Currently, I'm staying in the city center in a large one-bedroom apartment with a patio that has a nice view outdoors. Also full kitchen. The whole apartment is private. I have the whole place to myself. I have the laundry, I have nice leather couch and the TV and all the basic amenities, and it's a very comfortable place. It's very quiet too in the city center, and I'm paying less than $50 per day for this kind of place. I love it. I'm very happy to live here in Sofia for such a low price. So as a general rule, Eastern Europe is always going to be a lot more affordable than Western Europe, and Sofia is also going to be a lot more affordable than any other city in the Western Europe. So I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you want to have a budget-friendly vacation. Now, if you want to save even more, I do have some additional tips. If you want to get the best possible deal, try to book as early in advance as you can. You don't necessarily have to book everything in advance the way that you do when you travel to Western Europe. You probably know that when you travel to Western Europe, you really must book everything in advance. Otherwise, you're gonna pay triple, or a lot of things like train tickets, they might not even be available. In Sofia, it's not the case. You're still gonna have lots of options, and it's still gonna be relatively affordable, but if you book in advance, you're gonna pay less, and also you're gonna have more options to choose from. So that is a general rule. No matter where you travel, try to reserve it a couple of months in advance if you can. If it's possible, try to do it even earlier. If not, just do it as early as you can. I understand that everybody's situation is different. For example, I'm a business owner, and it's very difficult for me sometimes to plan too far ahead of time. because of my business. I might have to be somewhere in the last minute, in the last moment, so I don't want to book something that is not refundable too far in advance usually. But if you have that option, take advantage of that, as it's going to save you lots of money and also give you more and better options to choose from. The next thing I'd like to mention is you should check for price fluctuations. For example, when I was looking at flights, I was flying in here from Brussels, Belgium, and I was looking at the different flight options, and I noticed that sometimes the flight would be like $80 and another day it would be $160, and then the day after it would be $20. So I recommend taking a look and checking it for a few days in a row to see if you can find those price fluctuations, and when you see the lowest price, that would be the best time to book it. I also recommend trying to explore different dates. Sometimes if you leave a couple of days earlier or a couple of days later, it can be a lot less expensive. And fortunately, there are a lot of online tools that you can use. First of all, you can just ask AI to give you average prices for flights between two different places. You can also use Google Flights features to learn more about the average prices and price history and price predictions. All of those tools are pretty easy to use and they are free. You just need to have a little bit of patience and take a look and play around with it, and you will see it's very easy, and it can be very helpful if you're not sure if this is a good deal or not. You can just take a look at the price history. You can see how much those tickets were selling for yesterday, day before yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, and that's gonna tell you, okay, right now the price is awesome, it's really low, or right now it's not the best time to buy. Also, I recommend checking for alternative routes and also considering different paths for flying, or adding some destinations in between, or doing the opposite, flying from a different city altogether. For example, actually how I ended up in Brussels, I was checking for flights from London to Sofia, and they were really expensive, and I didn't want to pay a lot for the flight so short, and I was really flexible about the dates and the locations anyway, so I wanted to play around and see what other options are available, and I found a very cheap flight from Brussels to Sofia. It was like less than $20 or something like that, the starting price. Of course, I had to pay extra for the bags, and I had to pay extra to choose my seat, but still it was pretty cheap overall. And guess what? It was still way cheaper than flying from London. And from London to Brussels, it's only a 2-hour high-speed train ride. And yes, the train ride itself is not very cheap. I paid extra for that too, but I got to see Brussels, I got to see Belgium. I ended up staying there for a couple of weeks actually, and it was a great addition to my trip. I really enjoyed exploring that part of the world. I had never been to Belgium before. They have a lot of things to offer that I enjoyed experiencing and checking out, and I also saved a lot on the flight. Actually, if you add up, do the math, it still was a really good deal to go through Brussels as opposed to flying directly from London. So if you are flexible and if you have a little bit of patience, just take a seat in front of your computer and play around and check different options, check different departure points, different destination points, and you can also take a look at Google Flights Explore feature, because if you explore, it gives you basically within the next couple of months or 6 months, you can choose those parameters, but it's gonna give you all the destinations, all the departures, all the options, and you can just basically decide which way to go based on the price. I do want to point out that you should be careful when you see the lowest price, because usually these cheap flights, they do not include anything. They do not include water, they do not include seats, they do not include bags, and you might have to pay extra for a lot of these basic things. So I would suggest double checking and doing the math. Sometimes when you click on it and you start adding those extras, it might end up costing even more than just booking the more expensive ticket in the first place that already includes a lot of those things. So make sure to check the cheaper ones, but also check the more expensive ones, because sometimes the more expensive one might be cheaper when it comes to the final price that you pay out of the door. The next thing I want to mention is that when you shop around and when you eat, it's gonna make a big difference which store you go to. Any country, any city has different store chains, from some local stores to big chains, and some of them tend to be more expensive, some of them tend to be less expensive. For Europe, I recommend checking out Lidl, Lidl, or Aldi, Aldi. Those two chains tend to be the cheapest, and they offer a decent selection of good quality food, all kinds of items at very reasonable prices. So I recommend going to these two chains and avoiding other stores that can be a lot more expensive. The next thing I'd like to mention is also buying food at supermarkets and eating at supermarkets. I mean, not eating at supermarkets, but buying your food that you eat at supermarkets as opposed to going to restaurants, because if you go to restaurants, chances are it's going to be a lot more expensive. Doesn't matter what country you travel to, food at restaurants is always pricier, and oftentimes it's not as healthy as what you can buy in a supermarket. And guess what? If you want to feel the local vibes, one great thing you can do that is budget friendly and super enjoyable is going to a supermarket, buying a salad or a sandwich or whatever it is that you like, maybe some sushi, and then bringing it to the park and sitting on the bench and eating it with a nice view of the city skyline, or next to a fountain in some cool green area with lots of trees and shade, and enjoying the city energy without having to pay extra for eating in the restaurant and then ordering and then waiting, and who knows if you're gonna like it or not, and how long it's gonna take, and what about the quality, what about the cleanliness, and what about the price, what about the health. Also, all of that stuff those are the big questions that that I ask myself when I go to eat at restaurants. So eating in a buying supermarket food can be actually not only cheaper but also more convenient and more enjoyable. The next thing I'd like to mention is, if you want to save a little bit more money, you should consider staying outside of the city center, because when you are inside city centers, usually the property values are higher and everything is going to cost more, and obviously you have to pay that. Those costs, they are passed on to the consumer, and we end up paying more if we are staying in city centers. It can be very convenient, especially here in Sofia, Bulgaria, because they don't have they don't have free toilets. So if you want to use the toilet, you have to pay, or you have to go to some restaurant or something, or some place, or you can go home. If you're staying in the city center, it's just a few blocks away, it's very easy to go home, take care of your business, and then come back out again. So but if you are staying outside of the city center, it's gonna cost even less. And here in Sofia, as well as many other European cities, whether it's Eastern Europe or Western Europe, public transportation is usually really good. You don't have to worry about driving or ordering rideshare services, Ubering. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You can use trams, buses, trolley buses, subways, trains, metro, and the frequencies are very high, so you don't have to wait for the bus to arrive for too long, and it's very easy to get to the city center, usually from almost anywhere. Of course, you should use Google Maps to double check before you book the hotel or you book the Airbnb. Take a look at that address, type that in, and then also check for directions, how to get there from there to the city center and back. And this way you will know, is this location convenient? Is it gonna work for me? Is this gonna be a good deal or not? And you can also see how long it takes, if you need to make any transfers, or it's a direct route, it's a direct ride. You can also check on the price. So the main tip that I wanna share with you is just take some time to research everything a little bit before making your decisions, before booking, because it's going to make a pretty big difference. If you just take a few hours to research, do your homework, and check all these things. It's gonna save you a lot of money and a lot of time and make your trip a lot more smooth and enjoyable, because when you are actually traveling, you'll be able to enjoy it and you won't have to worry about these things, because you already know, okay, from the airport it's very easy to get to the hotel. Whereas if you didn't check, sometimes it can take a couple of hours, and if your flight arrives in the middle of the night and you didn't really consider that when you were booking the flight, you arrive at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., the flight is delayed by another hour, it ends up being 3 a.m. and then it takes 2 hours to get home, but public transportation doesn't work, so you have to figure out some kind of night bus option or book a taxi, but they don't have Uber they don't accept cards. You need to have cash and you don't have the cash, and currency exchange is closed. All these things happen to travelers. If you want to avoid all of that, do a little bit of research, a little bit pre-planning, and this is going to make your trip a lot more smooth and enjoyable. And if you need any assistance, feel free to contact me. I am always happy to help, whether it's trip planning, life coaching, or business consulting. And also at the end of this trip of me visiting Sofia, Bulgaria, I'll be recording my final verdict video comparing Sofia with other cities to help you decide if you should visit, while also saving you lots of time and money with practical tips on how to get the most out of your trip. This will be an exclusive video, but you can easily gain access to it by subscribing or donating any amount on buymeacoffee.com/transitnomad or through the link in the video description below. With that being said, thank you everyone for watching, commenting, liking, and subscribing. I appreciate you being a part of the Transit Nomad family and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.